Hey guys, I hope you can hear me. I think we are live now on YouTube. So, can anyone confirm that my voice is clear and can you see me properly? Okay, great. Uh, I think we are. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Fez. Hi, Dinesh. Hi, Neha. Hey, Vivek. That's great. Good, guys. That's something really interesting that we are going to cover today. Please ask as much as question that you want to ask. It's something really interesting tool that we are going to cover. And I'm personally have seen this particular tool and then taken a demo from the team that looks really impressive. And yeah, so we have a demo, and then definitely you can suggest this particular product to your management. If you really want to use that, you can do that. Hey Mukesh, how are you? Thanks for joining. Okay, my voice is clear, right? And you can see me properly. Great. Okay, I think let me quickly check. We have around 180 count. So let's wait for a few seconds and then we will start that. Okay, great. Thank you for confirming, guys. And please share this live stream with others in the Telegram group and other pages also, so that more people will join, and that will be great. So I think let me share in the Telegram group as well. Can someone please share that? Okay, that's really good. 1 second. Yeah, thanks, Sarang. Okay, I think we can start now. So, guys, thanks for joining. First of all, very good morning for all the US folks and very good evening in India. And we have today the co-founder of Reflect, Mr. Todd, with us. And Todd, now you can come on the screen. I think let me add you in the stream. Hey, Todd,
Hey,
how are you?
everybody. Good. How are you doing, Naveen?
I'm doing good. Very good morning, Todd.
Good morning. Good evening.
Okay, so Todd, like you can see, I think this is the first time for you also, right, on the YouTube live stream.
It is. Yeah. This is very
Okay.
cool.
Okay, that's really good. Thanks you so much, Todd, for giving your time. And then we are really excited to see your tool, your effort, your hard work from last couple of months that you guys are putting. And first of all, congratulations for your first funding. I saw the on LinkedIn. That's many congratulations for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we were very excited about it.
Great. So, Todd, this is the thing that we have a lot of people that we will. I know that you have really good things to show us in terms of Reflect, and definitely we are looking for good things. So, guys, I met Todd on LinkedIn, and then I think a couple of months back, I think 6 months back, and then I he gave me a demo also on Reflect, and that was a very new baby that time, I think. And then I gave a couple of suggestions, and I'm really glad that okay, all the suggestions and everything now implemented and looks really promising. I personally tried for myself that it's really looks great. So Ted, the stage is yours, and now you can start with your things.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, Naveen, again for the opportunity to chat with your audience today. Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Reflect. We started this company about a year and a half ago to address what we saw was a gap in test automation tools.
Mhm.
My background is as a developer, and as a developer, we do test automation just as a test team would do automation, and we ourselves struggled with being able
Mhm.
to find the time to do all the test
Mhm.
automation that we needed. And so the idea behind Reflect is really how can we make it very easy for you to set up the test cases or the
Mhm.
test automation, the UI automation that you need that are really common scenarios, like if you're an e-commerce store,
Mhm.
how can you set up automation for things like add to cart, registration and stuff that
Mhm.
wouldn't take as much time as, some of the other tools on the market. So that's really our goal, to make creating tests really easy, to make it easy to maintain the tests as well.
Okay. So what motivated you to to think about it, Reflect? What when did you think about that? Okay, you should start something like this.
Well, we had thought about it for a while. My co-founder and I used to work at the same
Mhm.
company, and we had thought about different ideas, and it was all based around our own experiences. And
Mhm.
end-to-end testing was the one that we thought was
Mhm.
promising because we ourselves had both experienced that pain of, just hard to get the test automation up and running and maintaining it over time.
Mhm.
And so that was what led us to build this. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think one of the things that, and you kind of touched on it, like as typical developer, you kind of underestimate how much time
Mhm.
it'll take to build something. So building
Mhm.
out the product took us quite a while, just to get everything right. And we're still doing a lot of product investments in it. There's still a lot to do, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's been good to be able to see
Mhm.
customers on board and be successful with it.
Oh, nice. That's really great. So how many customers you have right now, like so far?
We have 90 paying customers, so we have it's a freemium product. So there's a free tier, and so people
Okay.
sign up and get started for free. But on our
Okay.
paid tier, we have 90 paying
Nice.
customers.
Oh, that's really great. So like I mean, my question is that okay, generally people having this mindset that okay, no, the codeless automation tool and scriptless automation tool is not that good, and you have this thing in the market, right? You must have heard about it. So
Yeah.
what do you think about this thing? Like, how will you convince these people?
Yeah, there's a lot. We hear that a lot from the people that we talk to, people who are evaluating it, where codeless tools, record and
Mhm.
playback tools are great brittle tests. They're hard to
Correct.
maintain. They don't support the things that you need to do. That
Yeah.
that's really where we're focused on, is to make the recording experience as accurate as possible. And
Hmm.
then on the maintenance side, where we think that some of the tools in the market go wrong is that it generates
Hmm.
code and then you have to maintain the code.
Yeah.
But really, it only what that means is that if you're a manual tester or someone who doesn't have development experience, it really only helps you create the test, but then you still need someone with development experience to maintain them. So with
Uh,
Reflect, it's completely no code. There's no code even on the maintenance side.
yeah. That's what people are very excited that okay, without writing a single line of code that we are going to automate with this.
Yep.
So Todd, I think I'm pretty much sure you have some demo also, and maybe you can share your screen now, and then we can start a demo.
Sure. Yeah. So I do have a couple of scenarios I wanted to share
Sure.
today. So let me share my screen. Um, okay. And okay. So it looks like the screen shared here. So yeah. So this is Reflect. This is our no-code test automation
Hmm.
platform. And so everything that you do within Reflect, between creating tests,
Hmm.
maintaining the tests, viewing the results, is done within our web app. So
Hmm.
one of the differentiators we have compared to some of the tools in the market is there's nothing to install.
Hmm.
And so you could literally get up and running in minutes, creating tests. So I have a number of tests that I created here already, but I figured I could walk through a couple scenarios
Hmm.
of just creating tests.
Sure.
Okay, so first test I'm going to create is, and I'll be testing against this automationpractice.com, which
Hmm.
your viewers might be familiar with. It's a pretty common
Yep.
e-commerce, automation fake
Yep.
website.
Yep.
So first one I'll do here is a login test.
Hmm.
So to get started, all you do is enter in the URL of the site you want to test and then the name of the test. And
Hmm.
so when I click begin recording, what's going to happen is we're going to load up a virtual machine in our cloud. And that
Hmm.
virtual machine is running an instrumented browser. So
Okay.
as you go through and interact with the site, just like with any other record and playback tool, we're
Hmm.
going to record your actions.
Hmm.
But it's in a screen shared session. So the browser,
Hmm.
this allows us to basically completely control the test environment and do some things that other
Hmm.
tools can't do.
Okay.
So you'll see on the left-hand side as I start interacting with it that the site that
Hmm.
will build up those test steps. The first thing I'll do though is show um, our support for visual testing. And
Okay.
so visual testing, normally you'd need to use like a third-party thing like Applitools or Percy to do that,
Hmm.
or there's some open source tools. We have that built into Reflect. And
Okay.
so for the sign-in link here, if I wanted to get coverage for that sign-in link, I can click on Add a Visual Validation
Hmm.
and then click and drag over the region I care about. You'll see it's highlighted here. And then click Save. And now I have both the text and the screenshot of that element here on my test.
Okay.
And so what that means is that when we run the tests, if the text changes or if the screenshot of that link ever changes, you'll get notified of a test failure.
Okay, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah, and that's nice because normally it's hard to get coverage for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to sign in here, and you'll see as I interact with this site, we're going to build up the test steps on the left-hand side,
Mm-hmm.
just as if you were writing a manual test script. So this kind of acts as like, in the case of a passing test, this acts as like a verification that everything is working fine. But in a failing test, this becomes like the steps to reproduce the problem. You don't have to write that out if you're
Okay.
using us. So here I'll log in with a account that I've already created.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see we're building that up on the left-hand side here. So I'll sign in, and then you'll see that I'm signed in correctly. The last step that I'll do here is basically an assertion saying that, hey, I'm signed in.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, I'll do another visual validation of my name on the top right. So this would only show up if I signed in successfully.
Okay.
So now when I save this recording, that's it. That's the login test. So now I can save it and we'll go off and run it automatically just
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that everything's working correctly.
Okay.
But now that I've created login, the reason I started with login is that's often a good place to start. A lot of our customers, their applications that they're testing are behind a login. So you'd want to record that first.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you have a login, you can create another test on top of that. So I have this
Okay.
live login test. And since this is an e-commerce site, maybe I want to test some scenarios as a logged in user. So like add to cart as a registered user.
Mm-hmm.
Now what's going to happen, since I said start from an existing test, that login test, instead
Okay.
of getting a fresh browser session,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to run through the login test for me automatically.
Okay.
So you'll see that it'll log in automatically for me here. And the benefit here is it's not repetitive as I go through and record my tests, but
Mm-hmm.
also the bigger advantage is on the maintenance side. If all of your tests are based off of this login test, if you ever need to change login, like say the login page changes, a developer adds like a checkbox that the user must click on to confirm terms of service or something, you would
Okay.
just change that in your login test and then everything else is updated automatically.
Okay. So, for example, you told that let's see, the login button is there, and instead of login tomorrow, we have some different text, and the visuals of that login is got changed. So automatically, it will notify you, or it will fix it automatically, something like this, or.
Yeah, it'll notify you automatically. So in the case that you mentioned, like let's say it changed from sign in to login, like the text
Okay.
changed,
Hmm.
you'll get a failure, and that failure will show up here. We'll basically say, we found the selector. We actually generate selectors automatically for you. We generate multiple selectors so that, over
Mm-hmm.
time, if the site changes, we'll still be able to find an accurate selector.
Mm-hmm.
But in this section here, it'll basically tell you, hey, it used to say sign in, but now it says login, and you'll see the change in here as well.
Okay.
So then it'll be up to you whether you want to just say, hey, use this new, whatever this looks like now, use that going forward, or there's other ways to modify the test to make it work.
Okay. And let's say after login, you're saying that, okay, your name is getting displayed. So how exactly you're going to verify that? What can you show me that assertion point as well?
Yeah, so this is another visual validation step. So this is similar to the one I showed you up here on sign in. The first thing that it's going to do is it's going to
Mm-hmm.
look for the selector. So
Okay.
it's going to go through here and say, for this selector, make sure that it only uniquely appears on the page and it's visible. And it'll scroll to it if it's not visible. But if it's like obscured by a modal or something like that where the user couldn't interact with it, it'll fail
Mm-hmm.
it right there because you can't interact with it. But then down here, what it's going to do is once it finds the element, it'll grab the text out of the element, it'll take a screenshot of the element, and it'll compare it with what we have here.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty simple. I mean, something like Applitools is a lot more fully featured.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of like say this region's to ignore and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other stuff. The reason we tried to make this simple so that you can still say, I only want to validate this particular section because it's the only thing that's relevant to my test, or I know other parts of the page are dynamic, but still, keep it like a simple workflow.
So let's see, the moment you got notified that okay, some element got changed or some locator got changed, so it will do the auto healing, or you have to do it, or you have to fix it.
You have to do it yourself. So you'll get notified and you'll go in, but it's a pretty easy workflow. I can show you that.
Okay.
Let me finish this particular test and then I'll show you a
Yeah.
failing one so you can kind of see what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So just right now where we're at with this test is we logged in,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'll just do an add to cart because that's pretty common in ecom. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll go down here, and just like how we can grab text, like I grabbed the my name here and the sign in link, we can also
Mm-hmm.
grab images too. So there's an image right there, and add that to cart. We can grab larger elements, so we could grab this whole modal if we wanted to as well.
Wow.
Um, Yep. So you can grab that. And then one feature that we rolled out over the past couple of months, I think we didn't have this when I initially talked to you, Naveen, is handling dynamic text.
Okay.
So let's take, for example, in this scenario here, it's a little hard to see, but it says color orange, size small.
Mm-hmm.
So you could imagine you might have a requirement where, hey, we need to make sure that a color and a size is displayed, but in your test environment, that color and size may change over time.
Correct. Correct.
And so you may want to say, it doesn't really matter for this requirement what the color is as long as it shows something.
Mm-hmm.
The way to do that is to basically switch this from static to dynamic. So
Okay.
when you switch it from static to dynamic, it tells you highlight the dynamic text. Here
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to highlight orange, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
going to let me make this dynamic by basically assign it to what we call variables. So
Okay.
if you're a developer, you're familiar with variables. If you're not, a variable is just something that you can assign a value to something and then optionally use that later. So I could
Correct.
assign this to a new variable called color,
Mm-hmm.
and I could do the same thing for size and assign it to a new variable called size.
Okay.
And so if later in the test, like let's say in the order confirmation page, I wanted to make sure that whatever color and size shows up here also
Mm-hmm.
shows up on order confirmation, I could just refer to these same variables.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could just not do anything with the variables, and what that'll do is
Mm-hmm.
basically ignore whatever values are in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Todd, I would say that it's this amazing feature. Like you are capturing text from the image, and you are making it dynamic and providing the values. I mean, the variables over there, and I can use these variables anytime in my script, right?
You can, yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yep.
that's something really good. Okay.
Yeah. For this particular test, you'd want to turn off the visual part of it because it's going to change potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty common. A lot of our customers ask for this feature. And
Hmm.
normally what you'd have to do if you're writing code is you'd have to write maybe like a regular expression, or some sort of scripting to get these values. But this is a way to do it without having to write code.
Okay. So whenever you're doing you are taking a screenshot, right, from the page.
Mhm.
So that screenshot is coming in the form of image or something, or
This
what?
the screenshot comes in the form of an image. So the text that you see here, we don't
Uh-huh.
we don't do any sort of OCR on the image, but we'll
Yeah. That.
grab the text out of the element here. So the element here is actually text. Um,
Okay.
so this will always be an image,
Mm-hmm.
but this will be text if it'll only show up that there's text in the element.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, because if you are using some OCR, then it might fail in future if OCR libraries are getting failed or getting updated.
that's
That
right.
will be an extra dependency we are creating it over there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's no OCR. It just does it just grabs the text out of the element. Yep.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Yeah. And let me show you, Naveen, the failing test so you can see what that looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a test I recorded earlier where I searched for, I'll go to the beginning here. By the way, this is the view you get when you look at a test run. So any run test that you execute, you get a video that's synced up
Mm-hmm.
with the test steps. And
Mm-hmm.
this case, this is a failing test. I can see because it's red over here. And the failing test step is here. So the green check mark here means that we found a selector. So of all the selectors we had, the first one matched just fine, but the
Mm-hmm.
text and the image is what's different.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
expected 12:06 a.m. is 10:54, and you can see that here as well by this is the expected screenshot. This is the
Mm-hmm.
screenshot we took when we ran it, and this is the pixel for pixel difference between the two.
Uh-huh. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if this was like a legitimate change, like to your example, where it changed from saying login to sign in, it would
Hmm.
fail right here. We don't do any sort of self-healing for that, but you would just click accept changes and save it. And then going forward, it would
Hmm.
use the new text for the login link.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep.
Okay. So Todd, one more thing. Let's see. You are running. You have recorded your script and you have modified your script and you are running daily basis. And how will you handle the synchronization issues, like loading issues and synchronizations and all?
Yeah. So like for like long running actions on the page, like you click something and it shows a spinner for a while.
Hmm.
Yeah. So visual validations where I take these screenshots, that
Hmm.
actually comes into play there as well. So um, if you add a visual validation, so like if let's say you had you're placing an order on this page, you click place order, it takes several seconds usually for that to happen. If you
Okay.
wanted to tell Reflect to wait until that's done, you would
Hmm.
add a visual validation for whatever appears after the spinner goes away, after that action is completed.
Okay.
What that
So.
does is tells Reflect to wait until that element is there. And
Mhm.
so that's a way to avoid adding these like, hard-coded wait time, which is pretty brittle.
Okay, so this is a dynamic wait, right? Automatically, once the element is visible, let's say we have given the wait of 10 seconds and element is visible within 2 seconds, the rest of the 8 seconds will be ignored. Something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. Yeah, the timeout we have by default is 30 seconds. But
Okay.
yeah, the visual validation does two things. So any step that you take will
Mm-hmm.
wait for the selector to appear so that it does kind of the equivalent of like wait for in Selenium. But the visual validation does one step better because it waits for it to look like this. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll wait for the element to appear and then it'll wait for it to look like it should. So
Okay.
an example of that might be maybe you have a button that always shows up, but when you click
Mm-hmm.
it, it's temporarily disabled while something's happening. You could
Mm-hmm.
add a visual validation for its undisabled state. So it'll wait. Basically, it's telling Reflect, wait until this thing is no longer disabled, then click on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not and you are not storing anything on the local machine, right? It's everything is on the browser. And when you record something, can we save some file, like any extension you are generating from out of it, or it everything will be stored on your cloud?
Everything's stored in our cloud. Yeah. So even things like if you're doing like a file upload, we
Mm-hmm.
support that. It's all going to be stored in the cloud. Yeah. It doesn't take any dependencies like auto IT or anything like that that requires some
Okay.
finagling. Yeah.
And one more thing, let's see, for example, this sign in button is there that you have captured,
Hmm.
having the white text with the black background. So let's see, somewhere the background got changed, or any resolution got changed or something like this. Let's see, tomorrow it's coming in with the blue color. So will it pass or will it fail? Are you doing the color matching also, something like this? Or
We do. Yeah. So just like how if I go back to the failing test, um,
okay.
just like how you can see, this kind of shows you visually how our algorithm
Okay.
works. It's comparing these two screenshots. So even if the text was exactly the same, but the color was different,
Mhm.
you would see that here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that it would definitely fail it because a lot of the pixels would be different.
Okay, that's great. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a kind of a more complex scenario that I could demo.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful. So one thing that it's nice to have the test composition, being able to chain test together and have
Mm-hmm.
variables to ignore things, but there's some more complex scenarios that we can support too. So like if you wanted to test the sign up flow,
Mm-hmm.
we can do that in Reflect as well. So let me show you how that works. So sign up flows can be difficult because when you're testing sign up, usually
Mm-hmm.
when you use a username, you have to use a different one the next time you run the test because that username's taken. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it requires using some random values in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in this particular case, there's a point in the test where we need to validate that the email was sent to verify our email. And that's, again, something that's typically hard to do.
Okay.
So let me show you how you can automate that in Reflect. So we'll go in here and I'm just going to enter in an email address, like a random one. And I'm going to use this toddemo.email.reflect.run email address. So that's kind of special because that allows us to actually have access to the emails that are generated. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
just do random password here. I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. This isn't really, this is just their onboarding flow. It's not really pertinent to what we're doing here. So this is a good example of the scenario you asked, Naveen. This thing
Yeah.
is going to take several seconds, and we want to wait until whenever it's done, whatever shows up.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do here is add a visual validation for maybe this. I'll do it later because I'm about to click on that.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to do is going to wait for that to appear before proceeding.
Oh, okay.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
going to wait for it to look like that before proceeding.
Okay.
So now I'll click on it. I'll close this one. These, for example, are these. I know this flow because I've tested it a lot. Like these will sometimes show up where it says, click next, click next. To
Mm-hmm.
handle that, where like a scenario where maybe something shows up sometimes, you can just mark a test as set as optional. So this button
Mm-hmm.
right here. So just mark those as optional. And so now we're at the point here where it says, please confirm your email address. So I'm going to grab that here. And so now if I were to run this test right now without any changes, it would fail. And the reason it would fail is because I haven't done the, I haven't made the, when it tries to register this email address, it's going to fail because it already exists. And I
Exactly.
haven't really finished the test where we like actually click on the email address too. It's kind of an incomplete test.
Okay.
So to fix this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over. This is the step where I entered in the email address. I'm going to switch this to use a variable. And
Mm-hmm.
with variables, you can use these functions. This is basically the closest you'll get to coding in Reflect.
Okay.
These are just functions that you can use to add random data into
Okay.
something. So I already have one created for my random email.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to interact with that email that was sent. So
Okay.
within Reflect, this is something that's in our enterprise tier, which is our highest tier, but you'll get this inbox. This inbox allows you to access emails.
Okay.
So this is a inbox. This is basically an email client in Reflect that gets,
Mm-hmm.
any email that ends in a particular domain. So in this case, it's toddemo.email.reflect.run. Those
Okay.
emails will appear here. And you'll see here that monday.com sent me two just now, one for please confirm your email and one was a welcome. So
Okay.
now what I need to do is I basically need to simulate clicking on this link.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way to do that is I just hover over it and grab the link and assign it to a variable.
Nice. Okay.
So now I can assign it to a variable and I'll call this confirmation link.
Mm-hmm.
And we now have this email step that was added, which says wait for an email that matches this to appear. Subject
Mm-hmm.
line, sender, name, and recipient. Recipient I actually need to change because this is going to change every run. I just assigned it to the same variable that I'm using above.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an example of you're inputting something and then you're using it later. I'll do the same thing here as well because this says please confirm your email address and this is going to be changing every time.
Correct.
Switch that to dynamic, assign it to the same thing again, turn off the visual part because it's going to change a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
now the final step to actually click on the email link, you just click on this address bar
Mm-hmm.
and click use variable, URL from variable, and now it clicks on the link. And so that's how you can get coverage for things that span web and email. So like confirm your email address, or if there's like a login where it's two-factor, you can grab the verification code and input it.
Nice. This is something very, very new I have seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of an example of pretty complex flow.
Hmm.
I'll cancel out of that. The one thing I didn't really show, which I just wanted to show, is I have that already recorded. So this is what it would look like if you save it and then you run it. This is what we call our test results view. So this shows you a video of
Okay.
the test running in our grid. So not of me recording it, but of the test running. And that is synced up with the test steps that we generated automatically for you. So I could go back and forth any point in time to see, where it's at. And I can click on any one of these to see like what selectors it use. Like for clicks, will actually tell you like where it's going to click exactly on the element.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has console and network logs here too. So if there's an issue, you can assign this over to a developer and they can take a look and see, may not know right away what the problem is.
That's nice. Okay.
Yeah. And you can see here too, these are the variables that we use. So in this case, there were a couple of variables. One of them was this random email. So we generated a random email address, and every time we run it, it's going to be a different email address.
Okay.
If I ever wanted to change this test, we're talking about how on the maintenance side, there's still no code. We have a re-record feature. So basically, you could choose any point in the test and say, I want to re-record this from here to maybe add a few steps or whatever. You just click on the step and then click re-record, and it'll kick you back into the recording experience. And that'll allow you to add additional steps, just like you did when you originally recorded it. Yeah, so yeah, you can see it's spinning up here. In terms of running the tests, all the tests, you run the tests within Reflect as well, so you don't integrate with something like Browser Stack. It's all done within us. So you can organize tests into different suites, and then run them. So like here's a set of 4 that I already put into a specific tag called smoke tests. I can click run all, and then when we click run, they'll spin up in parallel and start running.
Okay, that's great. So you can execute the entire suite once again, right? The entire suite, individual test also we can execute. And
that's exactly right. You could run them individually through this run test button. You can run them all through run all link. You can schedule them if you wanted to run them like hourly or daily, or you can hook it up with CI. So like you could hook it up with Jenkins, and it would work the same way. Once the build's done, Jenkins would kick off the Reflect tests.
Okay, so you support CI/CD integration also, like with Jenkins?
We do, yeah. So on our documentation section here, which is public, you can see these are all the ones that we support, which are all the main CI tools. This is the Jenkins integration, so you can see it's just calling our API here.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you are generating one API key, and then we have to pass that, and it will trigger the test cases from there directly.
Yep, everybody gets their own API key if you're a paid user. So free tier, we don't have API access, but paid we do, and then you would be able to run the tests. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So how many browsers you're supporting right now?
So today we only support Chrome. So that's definitely one of the things when you compare us to like Browser Stack or something where we're lacking. That's one of the things that we're planning on adding this year is support for all the modern browsers. So it would be Edge, Safari, and Firefox in addition to Chrome. Okay,
that is the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah. First half of 2021 is the plan for that.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great. So you want to show some data-driven thing also, right? That you told me that some data-driven testing, if you have that.
Yeah. So data-driven testing, right now it's done via our API. So we don't have a user interface for it, but you can run it through our API. So here's the documentation for that. Basically, the way that it works is with data-driven testing, you'll have a spreadsheet with different criteria, different permutations that you'd want to run for a single test. So like, let's say for this add to cart user here, add to cart as registered user, let's say you wanted to test it as different logins. That's a pretty common one.
Correct.
So what we would do is we would update this test to use, actually, let me go into the login test because we need to update it there. We would update this test to have these each be variables. So the username here would be a variable. Maybe we call it, email address. And the password, we would use something called, we'd add a new one called password. And password here, whatever the password is. And, we already have one, so I'll call it password too. So now that we have these as variables, what I can go back and do is in my spreadsheet, I could say, okay, username for this run, it's, username is a column and password is a column. And the value here is, user 1, password 1. And then each column represents a variable in Reflect, and each row represents a different permutation. And then when you run that, you'll see, like, let's say if we were doing the login test, you would see all the different runs show up here, and you could click on each of them to see, what values it used. So you would see the values used here and whether it passed or failed.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Looks really, really impressive, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you. I could talk a little bit about pricing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So um, pricing. So we have a free tier. So anybody could come on and do pretty much everything that I demonstrated here. Free tier doesn't
Mhm.
have email testing, but it has everything else. Um, and then we have a couple other paid tiers. So we have starter, standard, and then enterprise is basically if you need more than what's offered in standard. Um,
Okay.
the one thing that is the kind of the biggest determinant of what pricing tier you're on is how
Mhm.
often are you running your tests and how long do those tests take? And so that's
Okay.
what this is here. Execution time just means that in Reflect, how long were your tests running per month? And that
Mhm.
determines what tier you're in. So for example, here, this add to cart test took 28 seconds. That
Okay.
28 seconds goes against your 5 hours or 15 hours or whatever you have.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can
So,
create as many tests as you want, but you're limited to how often you run them.
okay. Okay. That's good. So, like, do you support like any parallel testing, multiple browser launching in parallel mode or something like this? If you have, let's say, 50 test cases, they will be running in the sequential mode or in the parallel mode.
So you can run tests in parallel. So that is just a configuration on the test
Mhm.
suite that you set up. So if I click on configure, tag, and schedule, um,
And test
there's
in
this,
parallel.
yeah, run tests in parallel. Now the one thing sometimes that comes up is sometimes you might want to run a test where you have them in multiple, it's like multiple browser windows that are running simultaneously. We don't
Hmm.
we don't support that. So like if you were testing a chat app and you wanted to have some person enter the chat and enter something and then another person come in and enter something, you would have to
Mhm.
do that all sequentially because
Okay.
all of the tests in Reflect run on a single browser window, single browser tab.
Okay. Okay. Great. And one more thing, like with respect to security, like because it's available on your cloud, and let's see some fintech company or some very confidential information that we are taking the screenshots and everything. So how secure it is?
Yeah, so we do all the things that are the best practice recommendations. So everything is encrypted, both in terms of sending traffic within our internal systems as well as how we store the data. But
Mm-hmm.
because we need to replay everything, it does mean that things like usernames and passwords
Hmm.
are stored in a way that is not one-way encrypted. It's encrypted so that we can then decrypt it and use it. So um, you know, we things like the assets that we have, like our videos and stuff like that, they
Mm-hmm.
are at URLs that aren't guessable. So they have what's called they have a random value in the URL. So that if I were to take a look at it, you wouldn't be able to guess what this URL is. So you can't like look at
Mm-hmm.
other people's videos or screenshots or file uploads. But the information is stored in our cloud. So that is something that you should be aware of if you're using it. What we recommend is people, test in your test environments, test as users
Mm-hmm.
who don't have as little privileges as possible. Don't test as an admin, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of minimizes anything that could happen. Um,
Okay. Yeah, we can use on test environment. The thing is, some companies they prefer that okay, they don't want to share their screens, maybe the test environment screens, or maybe the screen that a screenshot that you are taking it, some important information that is still under development, not in production,
yeah,
and they don't want to put it on the someone else cloud.
yeah.
So for those companies, I'm talking about actually.
Yeah, it's definitely come up, and some of them, it's not a good fit. They want to run something on premise, so that it doesn't ever get shared in the cloud. For other
Hmm.
ones, we've signed like NDAs,
Hmm.
and kind of went through security reviews with them to kind of make sure that we're following their standards. But yeah, some folks we talked to, they like the tool, but since it doesn't run on premise, it's not a fit for them.
Okay. Okay. And when you generate the report, like when the test cases are done, it will send any email notification like with the proper result, proper report, everything that how many test cases got passed, fail, and everything. Will it generate any kind of report and email notification will happen?
That's something today. The reporting is pretty light in the tool. So what you see in this view is basically at this point in time, what's
Mm-hmm.
passing and what's failing. What you're describing is basically, for a deployment or for this release, when we do the test, give me a report of that. That's again something that's coming in the future where you'll be
Okay.
able to go and see that for a release and then refer back to it, a month later, 3 months later to
Mm-hmm.
see the results of it. We'll
Okay.
be adding that. Yeah. What you get in terms of email now is if the test fails, you'll get an email about that particular test that links to the test. And then we
Mm-hmm.
also have the Slack integration that works the same way.
Okay. Slack integration with that. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And one more thing, like, do you support any mobile browser or any mobile apps or only mobile browsers?
We do mobile web and we also support React Native. So if you're using React Native, we can support that. The way that looks is basically, so if I would go to like Home Depot, we have this
Mm-hmm.
thing called device profiles. That's just simply, am I testing as desktop, tablet, or mobile? We
Mm-hmm.
also have the ability to add, custom profiles. So basically, if you want to test as a resolution that we don't support out of the box, we could do that. But
Okay.
mobile works the same way as desktop. We spin up the browser and share it with you.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing to know about mobile and tablet is that we're not actually running against an actual device. So we're
Okay.
using Chrome's emulation.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't be able to test things like camera roll or native features or native apps, but you can test like swiping, tapping. It's the correct resolution, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
So it supports both, right? iOS and Android mobile web you supporting with Chrome. iOS and Android both.
It'll let you test as the Chrome browser, so you wouldn't be able to test as mobile Safari. So again, like if that's another good example, like any specific mobile Safari bugs. I know mobile Safari can be pretty difficult, has weird bugs in it. We don't
Mm-hmm.
give coverage for that today. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. And in fact, like these days, we have different tools like JavaScript based tool like Protector and WebDriver IO. Cypress is available, and they really support really well with the Angular JS and React application on web. I'm talking about. So, like, did you face any problem with the Angular JS complex React application?
Yeah, so React and Angular and Vue, we do have customers on all of those, and initially that was one of the things that we had to make sure was working correctly for all those frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's working great for all of them now.
Okay.
Um, actually one thing that we do for React apps is we can use the React. With React, one of the challenges is that
Mm-hmm.
um, you'll often use something like a CSS in JS framework for React. So what that will do is it will generate all these random CSS classes
Yeah.
that
Correct.
make selectors hard to work with. So normally the way that you would handle that is you would add data test attributes so you have stable selectors. But what we
Mm-hmm.
do is we actually can use the underlying React component names as
Mm-hmm.
selectors. And so that lets you avoid having to add these data attributes. That's something special we only do for React. But
Mm-hmm.
we're the only tool that does that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And some complex web elements like Shadow DOM and pseudo elements are available. Does it support Shadow DOM?
We support Shadow DOM. We support handling of pseudo elements like with before or after pseudo
Yeah.
selectors. We support
Mm-hmm.
iframes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have support for all those. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what about like alerts, pop-ups, JavaScript pop-ups, model dialog pop-ups, file uploading pop-ups, something like that?
Mhm. Yeah. So we support most of the alerts. Um, just looking for this is our documentation. So our documentation section here is
Mm-hmm.
pretty comprehensive, and we have, for example, we have videos showing you how to do different things like email testing, for example, is here. This
Mm-hmm.
supported actions section covers all we handle. You can see we have iframes and Shadow DOM here.
Okay.
Um, or we do browser navigation. Native alerts, what we support is the alert, confirm, and prompts. We don't
Okay.
support, the one we don't support is this one here, which is like if you have filled out a
Mm-hmm.
form partially and try to click back, we
Mm-hmm.
don't capture that. But all the rest of them we do handle. File uploads we handle as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can show you file upload real quick because I think it's pretty
Sure.
pretty interesting. So file upload, just go to Google Translate. So file upload, this one, I'm familiar with it in the Selenium realm. I don't know what it looks like for the record and playback tools, but for Selenium, you would use something like AutoIT, and that's
Mhm.
because Selenium is supported natively, and that's can be pretty brittle.
Yeah.
Um, so with Reflect, what we do is we detect a file upload, we'll show you this modal. So
Hmm.
instead of getting the native, you know, native file picker, we'll show you a modal and say select a file from your desktop. So I'll
Okay.
select file, and now when I click upload, we're going to inject that into the VM.
Okay.
Now I can I can interact with it if I want. I could do a visual validation for it. I could do translate. And
Hmm.
this translated that file I uploaded from English into Spanish.
Hmm.
So I can even do a visual validation of that. What's cool about this is that it's easy to record it, but the files are already in the cloud now. So like this file that I uploaded, where is it at? Right here.
Hmm.
This is the file. It's already in the cloud, so it's repeatable now. Um, yeah, so it's pretty easy to do file uploads.
Oh yeah, nice. That's nice. This is something different way of handling the file upload.
Yeah,
Because in Selenium, what we do that either we use Sikuli or maybe Auto IT that we use that, but that doesn't work. Auto IT doesn't work on Docker containers on Mac machine or some other. It works only for Windows machine. Same thing for Sikuli also, that I have to keep maintaining all the resolution different JPG file, and then it's like sometimes very flaky.
yeah.
So, but yeah, that's good. And one more thing, like any PDF support, like PDF validations, like that.
We don't have any support for PDF validations. We also don't support
Mhm.
validating downloaded files. So if you click download on a file,
Yep.
the click will happen, but it won't do anything. We block downloads. Yeah.
Okay. 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 That's good. Okay. And what about the captcha barcode? Although we should not automate them. That's why they have provided to prevent automation. But any possibilities like to automate captcha?
Yeah. So what we recommend for things that like CAPTCHA where it's not automatable
Yep.
is when reflex tests are running. So either when you're recording something or you're running it, we set a JavaScript variable, um,
Mhm.
which basically is like is reflect test equals
Hmm.
true. And so if you have developers who can are willing to modify the
Yeah.
application behavior, then what you could
Mhm.
do is just say like if is reflect test is true, then don't display the captcha, otherwise do it. So that's kind of
Mhm.
like the what we recommend to get around stuff like that.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
And I thought one more thing, that can you please tell that how to like start, like as a first, like we're a new person that really want to work with Reflect. What is the first step that I have to take? Where to go? How to log in? And then what is the first thing that I have to do?
Yeah, so to get started, you would go to reflect.run. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is our site that gives information, has a video here showing how it works. Probably the best place to go before, you can sign up right here. So you just click sign up, and that it's free, totally free. You don't have to enter a credit card or anything. Um,
Okay.
but once you sign up, probably the best thing to do is go to our documentation section.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the links here, a lot of them have those videos. So quick start is a great place to start. This shows
Mm-hmm.
you the sign-in flow that I started with in the call. And if you go into other sections, we have other videos that you can look at. So this one here for test composition shows you how to chain tests together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to make this pretty comprehensive so that you can it's easier to get started. But yeah, sign up for free on our site and then go to the documentation section and check out our videos and our documentation.
Okay. Okay. That's great. So that's really good. Thanks for the demo. Now I think, Todd, if you allow, we can take some questions from audience as well.
Yeah, yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. So let me quickly check. It is appear on your screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So Nikhil is asking that any possibility to handle OTP integration with Twilio APIs to get OTP or something like that.
Yeah, so we don't support SMS with like Twilio integrations. If there was a one-time password with via email, then we do
Hmm.
support that. But with SMS, we don't support it. That is something that we want to add. And it would work similar to how email works, where you would
Mhm.
see the SMSs in
Mhm.
your Reflect account, but today we don't support that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And let's take this one, that Windows application automation. Do you support that?
We don't support Windows applications. So native mobile Windows applications, so like desktop applications and
Mhm.
Electron apps, we don't support. The reason why is because we've really focused on web, and the reason that the recorder is accurate is because we have a lot of hooks into the browser. So the way to
Mhm.
do it at native, the way to do it on Windows would mean completely different approach, and so that's why we don't support it. We won't support it in the future either.
Okay. Okay. So Anup is asking that, does the tool support integration with the AWS or using other cloud like personal cloud service?
So we run on our own cloud. So if the question to Noop is like, can we
Mhm.
use run within your cloud, like the test runner in your cloud? We don't support that. Um, if you're using AWS, like maybe AWS Code Deploy or something for your CI, that's something
Mhm.
that we do support, but we don't have documentation for. We will add that in the future. But yeah, everything is kind of self-contained, so we run our own cloud.
Okay. So by the way, which cloud services you guys are using for Reflect?
AWS.
AWS.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So next question, Kritik is asking that, does it support localization testing also?
We do support that. Yeah. So when I showed you the, kind of clicking and dragging over something like a dynamic assertion and assigns that to a
Mhm.
variable, you could do localization testing via data-driven testing that
Mhm.
way. So like you would highlight over the things that are going to be localized, assign them each to
Mhm.
different variables, and then you would have a spreadsheet that would say, for this particular URL, make it be English. For this particular URL, it should be Spanish, etc. We
Okay.
have a way for you to say, take this test and run it in a different environment. So that's how you can tell it to get
Mhm.
run it for the, Mexico or
Okay.
whatever. And then data driven is how you tell it what to assert against.
Yeah. And Rod, one question from my side actually, like sometimes if you see that in Selenium 4 also, that now you can intercept the APIs. Let's see,
Mhm.
for API integration, I want to generate some fake data in the form of JSON.
Yeah.
Cypress also does that. WebDriver also does that. So do you support any kind of thing where to achieve the end-to-end testing, I want to generate some data, let's say some bank server, and I don't have any QA environment for that particular server. So I can intercept the data and get the JSON or XML and then validate in my UI test automation. Something like that. Any planning in future, something like that.
I'm familiar with the Cypress. Like Cypress does like mocking of API
Yeah,
calls. Is that what you're
mocking.
talking
Exactly.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not planning on supporting that. I think that
Mhm.
um, with mocking, it definitely lets you um, get end-to-end coverage
Yeah.
for scenarios that would hard be otherwise, but it also means that you're making assumptions about the system that might not be
Mhm.
correct.
Mhm.
So we just the way that we're architected, because we're kind of an agent that's outside of the browser
Mhm.
itself and not like Cypress is inside the browser and you're kind of running self-contained. We
Mhm.
wouldn't really be able to support that. So no plans to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Next question, Rakshit is asking that, is there a way to fetch and verify the cookies?
Yeah, the right now we don't support that. So the best
Mhm.
alternative to that would be if based on what a cookie would do. So like if to verify like what a user would see if that cookie is a certain state, that's what
Mhm.
you would have to verify. The next thing that we want to add kind of around the cookie realm and local storage realm is being able to set
Mhm.
cookies. So when you run a test, being able to say this is the cookie name value, or for
Mhm.
local storage, these are the local storage values that we want to run at the start of the tests. That could be
Okay.
another way, for example, that would be useful for like turning off captchas, if the captcha is based off of cookies, or
Mhm.
for like turning off A/B tests,
Mhm.
because those tend to be based on cookies too. So
Okay. Okay. So the next question is again, Kritika is asking that data driven using any database table or any integration with databases like Oracle, MongoDB, or something like this.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we don't have an integration with that. The best you
Mhm.
could do is if you use our API, you could script that. So you could script something to grab it out of a database table, write it to a CSV, and upload it.
Mhm.
But today we don't support that. Um,
Okay. Okay. I think that's the right question. The Rakesh is asking that do you have any in-house security team or external vendors for penetration testing?
Yeah, that is a good question. We've
Mhm.
done the security reviews and kind of updates ourselves. I think as we grow, we would definitely be doing pen testing, and
Mhm.
probably at some point we would look to get like SOC 2 certified and stuff. Some customers have started asking for that.
Mhm.
But to date, we've kind of done it ourselves. We've had my co-founder and I, between us, we've had a lot of experience with like
Mhm.
securing systems, but it's not a replacement for a true pen test. So yeah, we'll be doing that in the future.
Okay. Let me take some more. So, like, do you have something like that? We do it in TestNG and JUnit and Cucumber sometimes. That if any failure test cases are there, I want to rerun those failure test cases with some retry logic or something like that. Do you have any concept like that?
We don't have that today. I think the thing that we need to build before we support that is
Mm-hmm.
the being able to see all the tests for a particular deployment. So that would
Mm-hmm.
be a natural place for like if you have that page, then you'll be able to see that 3 out of your 100 failed, and then have an easy way to retry it.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to build that first, so that this will probably come after that
Okay.
lands.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I think this is something. Is Reflect using Selenium in the background? It's coming from the Selenium family, or
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So the recorder is
okay.
completely custom built,
Hmm.
but the runner is Selenium. And we chose that because Selenium is, it's rock solid. It's been tested
Hmm.
for a long time, and it has through WebDriver. It has support for all the cross platforms. So, um, we knew we wanted to build cross browser eventually, and so
Hmm.
Selenium lets us do that. But yeah, it's using Selenium under the covers. It's completely abstracted away.
Okay. So are you guys calling any Selenium API, WebDriver API internally, or
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So the when we're driving the browser, it's all done through the
Hmm.
WebDriver API.
Okay.
And what we've done is there's things that we support that Selenium doesn't support natively. So you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of think of, we also have kind of like a layer where it kind of fixes some of the things that Selenium doesn't support. So like we have better support for drag and drop. We have native support for file uploads. We
Hmm.
have kind of built-in support for Shadow DOM, where I have to use JavaScript to do that in Selenium. Um, yeah, yeah. So it's Selenium, but stuff built on top of it.
So let's say you are interacting with the Chrome right now, and are you using any binary file like Chrome driver.exe provided by Google APIs or something like that internally?
Yep, interacting with the WebDriver API via the Chrome driver binary. Yep.
Okay, so that you will take care of it, right? That the Reflect will take care of it if any binary changes or any browser is getting upgraded to the new version. You will. We don't need to do anything for that.
That's right. Yeah. So we upgrade. We'll keep the browser upgraded
Okay.
to close to the latest version. I think we've been doing it historically once a quarter,
Hmm.
upgrading.
So
Um,
sorry, but what if let's see right now Chrome 88 is available? I want to execute in Chrome 75 or 80 or something. Do you support any backward compatibility also or something?
right now, it's just a single version.
Hmm.
When we roll out cross browser, we're considering having like being able to
Hmm.
target Chrome. A couple versions out. If you look at, we've looked at the
Hmm.
adoption for Chrome, and it's a pretty steep drop off after like the month after release. But there
Hmm.
is still like if you look at like Chrome 88 just got released. If you look at Chrome 87 maybe a month from now, that probably still has more usage than Firefox. If
Okay.
you look at your site, so it would make sense for us to support maybe the
Hmm.
last versions, current version, the last version, or last two versions. So we're considering that. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is that any way to generate and report logs.
Um, yeah. So the the logs that you get is the network and console logs that are in the test run.
Mhm.
The data, but we do show our own data in terms of what failed. So we don't expose like the Selenium logs or anything like that. The reason why is I find the Selenium logs pretty hard to understand.
Yeah.
And so you have to be a developer to understand it. Even then, I look at it sometimes and I'm not quite sure,
Mhm.
what it is. So what we've tried to do is have a better error message experience.
Mhm.
So kind of be
Mhm.
more directly, this is the thing that failed. So that's why we
Yeah.
don't show the Selenium logs.
Yeah, because in Selenium, some random things are coming. Let's see, element is not able to interact, or element not interactable, WebDriver exception, or a stale element, or something like that. And then we are totally clueless if you are not having the in-depth knowledge about that problem.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
like if you're a manual tester or someone who
yeah,
doesn't have experience with Selenium, it's really hard to understand what that means.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree with you. So Jiru is asking that for iframe, do you set the permission through JavaScript? Example, usually add-ons and extensions used to set that to access cross-domain origins.
Yeah, we do all that. So the cores, like to avoid cores issues or to avoid like security issues with iframes,
Mm-hmm.
we'll override that. Um, you know, Basically, this is one of the advantages of having a completely controlled test environment, is that
Mm-hmm.
we can make any modifications we need to make a better experience for you. So yeah, we handle that.
Yeah, I remember that last time you gave me the demo, that time frame was not supported.
Yeah, that we
And
did. Yeah, back then we didn't support it. So yeah, now as we've iterated, we get it. Customer onboards or tries it out. They hit an issue and then we fix it. But the good thing is we fix it for everybody. So that's
correct.
how we've been able to kind of build up more and more support for stuff.
Okay. Okay, I think this you have already taken.
Yeah, we do
One
support.
second.
We do support that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Ananya Sharma is asking that handling multiple tabs or switching tabs, is that possible?
So everything in Reflect runs in a single browser window. So what that means is that normally, if something would pop up as a separate window or in a separate tab, it would show up in Reflect as the single window. So in most cases, that's okay, because what it would just mean is that instead of switching to a different tab and then switching back, you would
Hmm.
interact with whatever shows up on the new window and then click the back button in Reflect
Hmm.
to go back to the previous page. But there are certain examples where it may not work. So, for example, if you have a pop-up and
Yeah.
the pop-up and the main window are communicating to each other, it wouldn't
Hmm.
work in that case because the two aren't running simultaneously. That's
Yeah.
that's the main case where it wouldn't work.
Yeah, because in Selenium we have driver window handler APIs. You can switch to the pop-up window and come back to the main window, and then you can interact with the tab and new window.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we don't support that.
Okay. I think something really interesting question, that where do you lag behind in comparison to Selenium, and what are your strengths against Selenium? Why do a client choose this tool against Selenium framework?
Yeah, this is a really good question. You know, Naveen, I'm sure you have opinion here. My thought is
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a good amount of testing that you do that is can be handled correctly with a record and playback approach. I think historically record and playback hasn't been that accurate in terms of recording, or
Yeah.
at least for more complex things, it's not that accurate and hard to
Mm-hmm.
maintain. So we're really focused on we think we can build something that is easily maintainable and handle these more complex interactions. But that said, Selenium
Mm-hmm.
is the ultimate flexible tool. Selenium will always be able to do things that we can't do because
Mm-hmm.
code just lets you do anything that you want. We're
Mm-hmm.
built on top of Selenium. But I'd say that things that we can do, which is hard to do in Selenium, are things
Mm-hmm.
like scripting drag and drops because Selenium doesn't have support for the native drag and drop APIs. We doing file upload. We talked about that. Visual
Mm-hmm.
testing. You would need to use an add-on for that. And then Shadow DOM, you'd have to use JavaScript and Selenium for that. So those are areas where I think where we have a leg up against Selenium. But you could do everything in Selenium. It's just
Mm-hmm.
harder to do it that way.
Okay. So let me take a I hope we can take a couple of more questions, Todd.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think this question, Lucky, is asking that network throttling support.
Yeah, we've had requests for it. We don't support it today, but it might be something we could add in the future. Um, I think it definitely is something that we'd like to support
Hmm.
because it makes sense to want to support, slow network connections. It's a
Hmm.
very, very key use case. So it is something we'd like to add in the future, but not we don't support it today.
Okay, okay. Now I think this is something very interesting thing. Aditya is asking if it's very. I really like this. It's very close to me. That can we do accessibility testing with this?
Yeah, so you can, but it's not a great tool for it, to be honest.
Hmm.
The tools on the market that are really good for it, I think it's called ACE. Is that right, Naveen?
If,
Or
if, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So those tools are really good for accessibility testing. I think
Hmm.
one thing that it's come up in the past, and we've taken a look at it. One thing we'd like to do is potentially integrate with the tools that are
Hmm.
really good at accessibility testing, um, like ACE. Uh,
Is there and DQ libraries are available. They support integration with the Selenium as well. You just need to add their dependency, and they have a certain defined accessibility testing rules are defined. Regulations are already there in their library, and they will check all the rarer components in your HTML DOM and everything, and then they will do that.
that sounds really nice. Yeah, I mean the accessibility stuff. It's you have to get it right, and it's
Hmm.
very complex. So it wouldn't make sense for us to like re-implement it. We would like to integrate with something. So
Sure.
yeah, it's a good question.
How it's different from Tosca?
Yeah, I've never used Tosca. I've heard of it.
Mhm.
I I think generally what way we're different from other tools is that with record and playback tools, if you're maintaining it, a lot of times you're either going to have to handle the code that's being generated. So you'll record it and then it'll
Mhm.
generate code and then you're maintaining that code, which isn't great if you're not a developer.
Mhm.
But also other tools I know when you're maintaining it or even when you're building it, it's oftentimes what you're going to do is you're going to use their GUI to create
Mhm.
each individual step. So you're still adding the selectors, you're still saying what should be done, where to click, whatever. It takes a lot of time to do it that way. With
Mhm.
Reflect, everything's done with the recorder, and we're more accurate generally than other tools. So I think that's a differentiator too.
Okay. Yeah. So Ishwarya Gandhi is asking that does it support any BDD approach like Gherkin keywords, given when then that generally we do it in Cucumber and JBehave or Serenity. Do you have any future plan for that or something like that?
Not any future plans for that. They could change, but basically we're kind of like a reverse gherkin where you're doing the work and then it's generating the description of it. Um, we don't have plans to integrate with a gherkin because it's just kind of it's just like a really different approach to how it works and reflect. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's the plan right now.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, even I don't think so that there should be any immediate plan for that because I really don't think so. It's really needed right now.
Yeah.
It's just a automation tool and just record and modify and customize it and start using it.
Yep.
I think that you have already told that Slack integration is there, right?
We do. Yeah. We'll send a Slack notification to the channel when the
Mhm.
test failure occurs, and then it'll link to the test failure.
Okay, okay. And I think this is something major problem that if we face that any test case dependency, one test case is dependent on other one. Let's see the login is getting failed, and I don't want to execute the entire other 50 test cases because login is not getting successfully done. So do we can we create something like that?
This is something that we don't support today, but we want to add.
Mhm.
So what we're
Hmm.
finding with our customers is that when they're getting the customers with more test suites, they've
Hmm.
been using our API to kind of do some of this already, where
Hmm.
basically they might have a set. It's a little bit different than the scenario you described, Naveen, but what you see is like there may be a set of tests that you need to run maybe to set up data, or that is
Hmm.
kind of a prerequisite to all the other tests. So maybe it's a set of tests you do first. If all of those pass, then you might have a bunch of other tests that could all run in parallel. It doesn't matter what order they're in.
Yeah.
We have multiple customers who are scripting that with the API. What we want to
Hmm.
do build that into Reflect where you can say, here's how your test suite should run. Run these tests. If any of them fail, stop. And
Mm-hmm.
then if all of them pass, run all these. These can all be in parallel. It doesn't matter if they succeed or
Correct.
fail. We want to
Hmm.
build that into Reflect so that you don't have to do it through the API.
Okay. So, like, do you have any support? Like, we have hooks, we have setup and tear down method provided by like test ng, JUnit, PyTest and all. Do you have some mechanism like that? That okay, we have certain preconditions. I want to execute those things, and then set of tear down conditions I want to execute after my test. Do you have something like that?
That's what people are using the API for as well.
Okay.
Like with setting up test data, it's common
Hmm.
for the customers who have a lot of tests. They want to be able to set up the test data and either have a teardown at the end or have it in
Hmm.
such a way that when you create the test data again, you're blowing away whatever was already there.
Hmm.
Um, that would play into this basically setting up the test suite to do what you describe in Reflect. Yeah, the test data problem is it comes up a lot because it's the
Hmm.
other. I think it's like the other really hard part of automation is getting your data in a way and set in a way
Hmm.
that your tests are repeatable. Um,
Yeah.
and we don't do it. We don't handle anything with that directly, but I think with this, like being able to orchestrate the test suites, that will make it a little bit easier for people to do it.
Okay. I think this is something for you that what type of customer base you have. I see it's more supporting e-commerce application and not business critical BPM microservices based application.
So we have 90 paying customers. It really varies by industry. So ecom is
Mhm.
actually not our main industry that we support. I know I
Mhm.
showed ecom as examples here, but
Mm.
we have we have a lot of SaaS applications. We have fintech, healthcare. We do have
Mhm.
ecom, um, consumer applications. Yeah, it's been interesting to see how kind of varied the user, our user base is.
Mhm.
We talk about the type of application that really fits best. It's anything where that would benefit from UI testing, where UI testing is like um, would be difficult. So like if you have like with visual testing is a good example. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to do automation in something like Selenium uh, without integration with Percy if you have like really visual
Yeah.
stuff. So that's what tends to get people excited. Um, and kind of on the like microservice based application, that part of it,
Mhm.
we never interact with the back end, so it doesn't matter what back end you're using.
Mm.
And we're not like API testing or anything, so you would still use like a Postman or something if you're testing your microservices. So it's
Mhm.
strictly UI, but really any industry it'll work for.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you because until unless it's a web browser, you can automate that, right? It's a web application. It doesn't matter it's e-commerce or fintech or healthcare, any kind of application that we can do that with Reflect. Yeah. So have you ever tried like SAP based application like Salesforce or SAP based some CRM applications where have you faced any challenges with those UIs?
Yeah. So Salesforce is particularly challenging.
Hmm.
We didn't have support for it until recently because
Mhm.
Salesforce Lightning, which is the newer version of Salesforce, uses Shadow DOM
Yeah.
heavily.
Yeah.
And so until we had support for that, which we added, I think, like a month or two ago, we couldn't
Mhm.
support Salesforce. But now we do. Yeah, we don't have any customers that are testing on SAP today. We've had some people evaluate it and
Mhm.
like it, but not on SAP today. But Salesforce, I know, is the one that's particularly hard. And yeah, we'd love to have people are using Salesforce apps. We'd love to have them try it because we're ready.
Mhm.
It should work fine.
Okay. So I think we have almost taken most of the questions. One, I really want to know your opinion on this question.
Is this something to replace Selenium? It's a hard question to answer. I mean, Selenium is so coming back to what I mentioned before. Selenium lets you do absolutely anything. So if you're an expert in Selenium, if you have scenarios that are hard to do, especially like something like you're doing calculations, it's tabular data,
Mhm.
Reflect isn't a good fit for that. But I would say, if you're a manual tester, if you have scenarios where, if you have scenarios where you think it could be a good fit to kind of augment where you're doing Selenium, the
Mhm.
advantage there is that you can spend more of your time on the hard to automate solutions and less on kind of the things that would be easily handled by us. So replacement, not maybe not maybe in some cases yes, but in some cases definitely not.
Mhm. Okay. So I think that's really great. Thanks. I'm pretty much sure that within a very short period of time, you guys have done a great amount of work, great amount of enhancement that you have done. I still remember the 6 months back, it was just a baby. Now I think it's really great. Really, really, I'm really happy to see that because I tell you, Todd, personally, my opinion was that codeless automation tool or a scriptless automation tool was not that great. Just record and play, and then you cannot automate big applications. And when you have 100, 200 test cases, that it's really difficult to maintain that. And we need some really good expertise in terms of designing, architecture, writing the code, and everything, right? But I think when I see certain features that you are doing, that's really great. And many, many congratulations for that. I'm really, really impressive work.
Thank you, Naveen. I appreciate that, and thank you again for having me on. I appreciate you being able to let me share it with your audience.
Sure. So let's see what reflect reflects. Thank you so much for that. So, any last thing that you really want to share with us? Definitely a lot of people they will be using Reflect after the session, and you must be ready for that. A lot of crowd is coming on your side. So, yeah. So,
Yeah, no,
any last pointers you want to say to the community?
yeah, I would say if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is todd@reflect.run. I'm happy to answer them. But give us a try. If you've used record and playback in the past, and maybe it didn't work for you, would love for you to give it a try. And maybe it's
Mhm.
something that this will be the thing that helps you. So yeah, please reach out if you have any questions.
Sure, definitely, Todd. Thank you so much, and thanks to all of you to joining this session. And I definitely thought we can plan one more webinar when you have some more interesting things with Reflect. Definitely, maybe after a couple of months, again we can have similar kind of webinar.
Yeah, I would like that.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for giving your time, Todd.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye. Yeah.